We now call this meeting to order of the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board for July 19th, 2023. This meeting is being held in Sacramento. It is also being broadcast via Zoom. I'm going to proceed to roll call the members. Please show that Chair Allen is present. Vice Chair Kent Monty.
Present. Member
Ng.
Present.
Member Wachowski.
Here.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the June 2023 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion. Vice Chair Kent Monty.
I approve.
Wachowski.
Approved.
And I'm an aye, so it's unanimous. Let's show that the June 2023 minutes have been adopted by the board unanimously. For the chair's report, I want to thank you to my fellow board members for closing a very large number of second-level appeals this last meeting. The board closed 1,074 cases since we last met. While the board was resolving second-level appeals, the field offices were resolving many thousands of cases at the first level. Of the 1,074 cases we did resolve, 263 of the cases were done with the California Appeals Management System, CAMS, which I learned today is what CAMS stands for, so thank you for that. I think it's only appropriate as the chair to thank all levels of the organization, our field offices, our field judges, our appeal judges, all the support staff we have for dealing with the tremendous caseload and still dealing with the outcomes and the fact that we're still recovering from the pandemic, even though it's many months after the crisis, but we're still recovering. So I want to thank everyone involved with the agency. With that, we will move to reports by the board members if they wish to provide a report. We'll start with our vice chair, Chair Kent Monty.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I do have just a brief report this month because I had the pleasure of visiting the LA Office of Appeals a few weeks ago to sit in on a portion of the ALJ CAMS training there. And it was really, really nice to meet a handful of the judges in person in LA. And interesting to learn that the CAMS trainings for many of the new judges and some of the older judges is the first time that some have met each other in real life. So that's kind of one additional benefit of CAMS is during these trainings, getting people together in real life to actually meet their colleagues. And for me, meeting the legendary Assistant Chief Hugh Harrison was really an honor. His depth and knowledge of the law, our agency, all the legacy systems is truly incredible. And to just even for a few hours be there while he was doing this training, I was so fortunate to be a part of that. I learned a lot in a short period of time, even as someone who has used CAMS for 6 months. So that was great. And the ALJs in LA were so positive. The portion of the training that I sat in on was the final afternoon. The next morning, they were all going to be conducting live hearings in the new software in the system, and they were very positive and seemed ready to tackle that, which I'm sure is nerve-wracking. So I just wanted to thank the LA Office of Appeals for inviting me to join and sit in on that, and especially wanted to thank the CAMS field training team. They've been working so hard and, for months and years to launch CAMS, and especially the training team traveling around the whole state for the past year. It takes a lot of time for people away from their homes and families to do that type of work, and they've been doing such a great job. So specifically, I wanted to send my thanks to Hugh Harrison, Renee Irwin, Martha Diaz, Martha Arcellana, Melissa Benson, John Zinto, and Joyce Bernatsky. I met most of them there. They've been the CAMS field training team, and they've been doing great work. On a separate note, I just wanted to thank Chief Kutry and Supervising Judge Bach for their work on continuing to expand language access. I had the pleasure of meeting, a couple times throughout the past month since our last board meeting, to talk about recent progress being made, continuing to translate our agency's vital documents into multiple languages. And I just want to thank them, our leadership, for taking that so seriously and making big improvements in that area. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn to Member Ng for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to report this month.
Okay. Member Wachowski.
Well, I didn't have quite the extensive in real life experience, but I did meet former board member, Dan Reeves, at his office, and went over a couple of the experiences that I've had here on the board and what he had, to wise words as he served on the board. I did not know that he wrote numerous dissents on his own, on decisions that came up. And I said, I was hoping that this position is not the great dissenter, that I was not looking forward to that responsibility. But he wishes everybody well, and was interested that I was enjoying the CAMS system also. So that's my report.
And he was an excellent board member, and we miss him. And I know he's doing well in his new job, but he was wonderful working with all of us when he was here. So thank you. With that, we'll turn to public comment. This is, excuse me here. Let me take a look here. Okay. Yes, we are on item 5 of the agenda. Excuse me. I just want to make sure that we're in proper order. So agenda item number 5 is for public comment. I'll ask the moderator, do you have any members of the public waiting to be heard?
Carolyn, I have no hands raised at this time. If I do see a hand in the next few seconds, I will let you know.
Okay, thank you. If we have no public comment, what we'll do is we'll move on. And hearing no public comment, we'll move to item number 6, which is report by the Executive Director, Michael Kutry.
Good afternoon, Chair Allen and board members. I'll start with some field office updates, including workload and timeliness, and then get on with some of the other updates I have concerning field operations. In June, the field offices issued just shy of 33,000 decisions. That's short of the decade-high 38,000 from May, but still a very high level of production, especially given the active CAMS rollout in one of our biggest offices and usual summer leave that comes around every year. Incoming monthly appeals are still on their 6-month decline. They dropped another 8% in June. Huge point of relief for our operations is that decreasing incoming appeal workload. Those things combined resulted in an open inventory of unemployment and PUA cases dropping by another 6,800 in number. That's another 5.5% reduction in our open inventory in 1 month. That follows a 7% reduction in May, and in total a 21% reduction since January. All very, very encouraging news. Our 30 and 45-day time-lapse numbers remain in the low single digits. That is by design, as we process our cases first in, first out. After a brief rise in April, our average case age continued its slow downward trajectory. In June, it averaged 137.5 days. We still compare very favorably to the national average. Its last report was 194 days. Clearly, this is a national trend in the case age remaining high as states come to terms with their leftover appeals backlogs as their equivalents of EDD have finished processing their pandemic workload. In order to accelerate the pace of that backlog reduction, we continue to onboard new staff and judges. Training cohort 17 for new ALJs completed last week. Those judges are now hearing cases in their field offices. The 18th training cohort is scheduled to commence at the end of this month. As Vice Chair Kent Monning shared, led by our treasurer, Hugh Harrison, Assistant Chief in charge of the field, the largest field office, Los Angeles, is now fully integrated into CAMS. Next is Inglewood. That's where Chief Harrison works. So those folks will have the benefit of his experience in that rollout. And after we finish Inglewood next month, we move on to Inland, Pasadena, and last but not least, the Bay Area. So we still have opportunities for any of you to attend some of those CAMS rollouts should you like to see it in action, and we hope you'll do so. Since the last meeting, I attended the National Association of Unemployment Insurance Appeals Professionals, otherwise known as NAWIAP or NUIAP. Nobody seems to agree while we were in Denver. But that was in Denver a couple weeks ago. We were joined by a U.S. Department of Labor there, so that was a real nice experience, especially over the last couple of years. We were briefed on national unemployment insurance trends, particular to appeals, but also to systems overall. And we had an opportunity to share some of our experiences from the pandemic, best practices, lessons learned, and some of our experiences with ongoing appeals backlogs. We are still engaged with Department of Labor's vendor for process improvement, equity, and fraud prevention in Region 6. And so far, that effort is not concluded, so we're not sure what the recommendations are going to be, but we're hopeful they can bring something to the table and help us both recover from our current backlog and plan for the next economic downturn. Since the last meeting, there was one office closure. It was not security related. It was a badge access issue at the office. So folks couldn't come into the office when they arrived in the morning. That office is quite digitally nimble, as they always have been, and they've been in CAMs for a long time. So they were able to pivot pretty quickly and convert all their hearings to telework hearings. Whenever an office closes, we inevitably miss some hearings, and they have to be rescheduled, so we prioritize those for rehearing, so there's a minimal impact on the parties due to the rescheduling. That concludes my report. Since I don't have anything security related, I'm happy to take any questions.
No, thank you for your report. It was very good, complete. And I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Kent Monty for any questions you might have.
Thank you. No questions, but I just appreciate you taking the time and effort to go to Denver to participate in the CUIAB conference. I think that's really valuable for our agency, and I know it takes extra time and effort for your schedule, but thanks for being our representative there.
Member Ring, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You also echoing the Vice Chair's comment. Thank you very much for representing us at the conference, and I understand that being the largest governing body with the most constituents, that our best practices actually can inform and help lead the other offices, and as I understand from talking with you that we have, and also that you came back with a number of possible new ideas too. And I think that's fantastic. And the 33,000, of course, is not the, we don't get 38,000 every day, but still is far, far above the historic lows that we had during the pandemic. And once again, thank you for the team effort. I wanted to, in terms of rolling out CAMs, I just wanted to make sure that I heard correctly that we expect to finish the complete rollout, including the Bay Area, by the end of the year. Is that what I heard?
Will be within a week or two if we don't actually hit the end of December. I just found out that one of the key training weeks starts, I think, on December 19th, which makes it a really tough logistical week to plan for. And I was very aggressive in asking them to finish by the end of the year, maybe to their detriment. So we'll talk about scheduling, but if it has to move into the first week of January, I think that's an acceptable delay.
Well, they didn't invent the doctrine of substantial performance for nothing, so that still
point.
sounds
Thank
like
you.
kind of amazing. And I know it's not the timeline that we're concerned about, but especially the quality and the training and actually the adoption of the mission, which I wanted to comment. It just appears to be that the entire CUIAB organization has really adopted the mission of seeing how important CAMS is, and also being able to identify the individuals that have worked on each, not all of them, but different parts of the entire case. I always found to be very, very enlightening. So, thank you. I think nothing further.
Member Witkowski.
Thank you. I guess I'd like a little bit more on the planning for the next downturn. We've heard, the pandemic was something unbelievably shocking. I mean, we hit a brick wall, and all of a sudden, people were out of work immediately. We haven't seen that type of stop in the economy. And I was wondering if you could just comment on what the thinkers are, because we're still waiting for this recession to occur in California that hasn't occurred, and all the economic indicators, even the best minds, haven't really come up with what does it look like on the horizon. But through an unemployment lens, I'd be interested in the conversations that you had, if you can add something more. And then how does the CAM system coming online and the efficiencies that that brings prepares us for these peaks and valleys if in the world of unemployment.
It isn't widely anticipated that if a recession happens, as opposed to a so-called soft landing, that unemployment rates may increase by a point or two at the most. If that's the case, we would be well-positioned to accommodate that extra work. We're still bringing on new people and elevating our monthly numbers, and as the appeals continue to drop, as long as that recession doesn't happen tomorrow, we'd be in a really good spot. It also takes some time for those unemployment increases to work their way into appeals. So we would have a built-in buffer there. But I'm pretty confident with the number of people that we've brought on board to deal with the pandemic workload that we'd be able to take on another several points of unemployment increases and the resulting appeals, of course. In terms of the CAM's efficiencies, we are just now seeing the maximum benefit of its efficiencies. And by that, I mean we're able to very nimbly and quickly move thousands of cases throughout the state, from an office that is backlogged and is having trouble hiring and keeping employees to an office that has a healthy population of employees. And so we're able to digitally move that work in minutes instead of weeks. We've got a long practice of packaging up appeals. They're voluminous when you do them by the hundreds, and they require a lot of care in terms of inventorying and shipping. And our old practice was to send several hundred at a time from field office to field office based on capacity. And we're very successfully moving thousands at a time now in CAMs. That's the peak efficiency, I think, that we'll see from CAMs. The pandemic, and even before the pandemic, resulted in a lot of different-sized offices based on attrition and recruiting difficulties. So now we can overcome a lot of that by sending the work where the people are. Mm-hmm. So I hope that we can sort of modulate the wait times among the offices much more efficiently from now on. We're actually starting now. We moved 2,000 cases at the beginning of this week with ease. Never been able to do that before.
Thank you.
Well, your report was very good. While we were discussing this and you were giving your answers, I was just thinking that we're sitting here and just for the public and for folks watching today, this particular board, our governor sometimes confuses people when he refers to California as a nation state. But the reason he refers to us as a nation state is that we have 40 million people. And basically this board serves more people than Great Britain, France. But if you know what I mean, we're really a nation state. And so for the volume of cases here, I think it's really important for the public to understand it's a huge number. It isn't some very small number of cases. It's when people in the public sometimes ask me what our caseload is and what is our backlog, and I tell them, they're astounded, and I have to explain to them it's the sheer size of our cases. And also California has a lot more complicated law. There's a lot of benefits we provide in California that other states do not provide that we're responsible for. So I just wanted to add that to your report because a lot of times people do not realize the magnitude of what we do here in terms of the total number of people we're serving. So I just wanted to make that point, and let's move the agenda to our supervising ALJ of Appellate Operations, Rebecca Bach.
Good afternoon. Interesting fact is that the end of June marks 1/4 of our Department of Labor year being done. Seems like it just started, but we're already a quarter through. And so some of the guidelines for the second level appeals at Appellate Operations is that we are to meet the Department of Labor guidelines to close 50% of our cases within 45 days. For the month of June, we closed 57.9%, making our year average 55.5, above the requisite. And we are to close 75% of our cases in 75 days. No, I'm so sorry. 80% of our cases within 75 days. I said that and I'm like, that is not true. And we closed 80.2, making our year average for, the quarter of year we've had so far, 83.7. So we're doing very good on those numbers. Our case aging to meet the Department of Labor standards is to be 40 days or less. It is at 38.4, and so we've met that number as well. Yes. And that's my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll take questions from our board. Member Kemp Money.
Thank you, Chair Allen. No questions, just thanks as always, Supervising Judge Bach, for your wonderful work and support of the board members and our questions about cases. Thank you.
Member Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judge Bach, again, kudos on the high level of training in the appellate office and appellate operations. I continue to see tremendously high level of analysis and consistency, which is very, very helpful to the panel. And you have no idea how often it is sometimes more important to understand the analysis and the reasoning than it is to achieve the result, because the result will always be there, but the how and why and the cases that are cited by the AO has been extremely helpful to me. I just wanted to express my personal, as a mediocre law student, I can tell you how much I really appreciate the analysis. Thank you.
I'll pass that on. Thank you.
Member Wachowski.
No, it's encouraging, the numbers and the compliance that we're having, given the report that Mr. Kutry made, is that it can only get better in the coming months as we're starting a new fiscal year now in California. So we judge things from July 1st to June 30th, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this next fiscal year goes with meeting these guidelines and how our performance is now that things are settling down, I guess, or normalizing. So thank you.
And Judge Bach, as I think all of our board members appreciate you and your help that you give us in cases sometimes when we need clarifications and details that sometimes cause us to wonder where we have to go deeper into a case to understand it. And you're always there for us, and that's always appreciated. So thank you. Yeah. So the next report we'll take is from our Chief of Information Security, Jefferson Willoughby.
Good afternoon, Chair Allen, members of the board. I'm afraid that some of my report is going to be a rehash of things that we've already heard today. As reported this month, we have completed staff and ALJ training in our Los Angeles field office, where feedback has been generally positive. Our training staff are doing a great job in refining their presentation and content over time as we roll offices out throughout the state. And they'll continue starting next week with staff training in Inglewood. And then only two offices remain and our tax branch, and we'll be complete. At this point, we remain cautiously optimistic that we'll meet our field office to rollout objective by the end of the year, with plus or minus a couple of weeks, which is great. So our stabilization vendor is really hard at work preparing deliverables, addressing the current highest priority issues. It seems like every time something arises as an issue, it becomes a number one priority, but we are doing our very best to remain focused in that area. We will see in the coming weeks some user visible changes, along with some things that are sort of perking along underneath the covers there that the public never sees, but are really important to the overall working of CAMS as a system. Some of those items include presentation of case documents, including a new viewer for the judges, which will be great when they are holding their hearings and throughout the appellate process as well. And improved language access on the My Appeal portal pages. So that will be in weeks, not years. So I'm happy to report that. And today, if I may, I'd really like to give some specific thanks out to the IT folks who are doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Some of you have interactions with them on occasion, but the developers and the business analysts in IT are sort of the unsung heroes of translation. They listen to what the business needs, and they're trying to translate that into the technology. And that is really important when we have a vendor who knows very little or nothing about how we do business and how our systems are architected. They play that vital role of knowledge transfer to the vendor. And I think that they're getting great information in return, which is great, because we're counting on that vendor to deliver some pretty meaningful things for us organizationally. So specific thanks go out to Anna and Ku and Larry and Radha and Natine and Funmi. They're doing wonderful work, and they are much appreciated by me, and I know for those of you that have interactions with them, you appreciate them as well. So that concludes my report for this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, while you're speaking, I was just thinking that you mentioned the word translation, and it just seems that there's so much specificity and now discrete areas of knowledge where a lot of times the English language, there's so many technical aspects to it that even within the English language, we have trouble understanding one another because of the technical nature of so many things that are happening. And it seems like it's even getting worse as technology seems to keep on, exponentially going forward. It's harder to translate in a way that, in the working world ends up with a product. So I understand what you're dealing with. So, it's, I thank you for your report. I'm going to turn it over to our board for questions. I'll begin with our Vice Chair, Kent Monty.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Thank you, Chief Willoughby. I did just have a follow-up question with the user visible changes that are going to be coming. Are those things that will require additional training for people who are already on CAMS, or are they kind of just going to be integrated into the system and we'll notice them? How does that play out?
There will be some level of training. I think I could refer to it more as spot training. For instance, if there is a tab where a function is being done today, say looking at a series of documents, a fully separate tab will replace it, and that will be how you view your documents. So it won't be at least in the case that I'm talking about now, I don't think it'll be a full retraining of the system. It'll be here's how you use the new thing. And I'm, I guess, cautiously optimistic that it won't bump our calendar out at all. We'll be able to fold that into what we're doing today.
Great. So some type of communication when it's
Absolutely.
being rolled out, but doesn't require massive amounts of additional training.
Yes.
Great. And then just to echo what you were saying, thank you for recognizing your staff by name. I've had the pleasure of working with Larry and Radha mostly as I was getting brought onto CAMS, and they were so kind and patient with my many questions. And, just to recognize this staff has been supporting our agency through the hardest time and highest case volume ever while simultaneously rolling out a new software, and that has to be extremely difficult. I know they're burning the midnight oil, and I just wanted to echo my appreciation. So thank you to your whole team. It's pretty impressive what they've been doing.
Member Ring, you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair Allen. Yes. So, Chief Willoughby, again, thanks for all the progress on CAM, but I wanted to also give a shout out to your help desk. I had an issue, was locked out, and I couldn't get in, and I called the help desk and wanted to give a shout out to a person named Aldo, who turned out was the individual that installed all of my equipment in my house almost 5 years ago, and who works in the Southern California area, and I was surprised to hear his voice. And he said that no matter where you are in the state, you're going to be rotating on to the help desk. And I thought that it's funny how the help desk, with regard to your department, is almost like a placeholder title for every department that we call. So, for example, if we have a problem with the case we're working on, I call Judge Bach's help desk, and Judge Bach immediately responds and helps us. And if it's on an appellate case, of course, Counselor Wusam Mark helps us on that, and of course the biggest helper of all is our chief. Kutri, and of course, I've never had a budget issue where I needed to get a loan very quickly, but Silva would have told me where to go immediately. I just wanted to revisit, we've now had quite a few number of months now with the public, and I wanted to know if there are any further updates that you could share with us in terms of individuals or advocates that share with you and your department in terms of how we might be able to improve or where there might be areas to troubleshoot as we move forward.
Yes, comments do continue to come in. Some of them are actionable, some of them are less so. So our frequently asked question body continues to grow in question and answer. So we're using those really as seeds for things that we think might be common issues that people would run across. I think in the future we'll likely improve that feedback form a little bit so that we can gain a little bit more information from people if they have a very specific question. But in terms of it being a springboard for specifically my appeal, the portal questions, it has been of some assistance to us. Others are simply unhappy with the process. So, and there aren't still very many. I would say we've received maybe less than 25 to 30 total comments since we launched that feedback form. So the ones that are actionable and we can give greater detail on how to move forward with the my appeal process, we're using that to supplement the FAQ page now.
Well, thank you. Just to follow up on a previous question, I know that there was a concern that if there's an issue with EDD, there is, I may be incorrectly stating it, but I do not know of a number that you could call where you would reach a live individual. I'm wondering if, with CAMS, whether there's an issue that would allow someone to make a call where they would talk to a live person. I know when I have a problem with Amazon, as resourceful as they are, I could never talk to a live person.
All of our field offices have direct lines to reception staff, so people that call those lines almost always get a live person.
That's great. Well, thank you. That's good to hear. And I know that more and more organizations that serve large numbers of constituencies are compressing, specific questions, FAQs or specific questions, so that they can pretty much take care of 95% of those questions before someone actually makes the call. So I'm glad to see that you're using that modeling to move forward.
Member Wachowski.
I don't actually have any questions. We've had enthusiastic discussion about the rollout of CAMS and the improvement of CAMS, and beyond Inglewood and the Inland Empire and Pasadena, it just doesn't get any better. It's exciting. It's exciting time to be part of the agency.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is from the historical perspective is that we're very fortunate to have Jefferson no, I mean it, you've done an excellent job, and your staff has done an excellent job. And it wasn't always the case that I was so happy in the past with our technology and the services. And I spoke loudly and complained often many years ago, but it's progressively gotten much better. And I just thank you. We're lucky to have you, in my opinion, and your staff, all of you. So let's move the agenda. The next thing we have is Mr. Rob Silva. So take it away.
Good afternoon,
Administrative Services.
Chair Allen and board members. I have a brief report today. I will start with an update on administrative law judge recruitments. For our Oxnard Office of Appeals, in addition to one hire in June, we have two more that are coming aboard next week. Here in Sacramento, we have another two ALJs starting next week, and we have a third scheduled to begin in August. With regard to our Orange County office, we're in the interview phase of doing ALJ hires down in Orange County as well. This is counterbalanced by something I found out just a half hour ago, that we have an announced retirement of one ALJ in the LA office, so these things are constantly in flux. Moving to support staff, since the last board meeting, we've only had two hires, one in the field and one in appellate. But we also had two support staff people retire at the end of the fiscal year. So again, that whole counterbalance is happening. Where we are now is that we have 22 pending support staff recruitments. Of the 22, 3 are in the name clearance phase, so we hope to have them hired soon. And unfortunately, we did have one candidate decline an offer late last week in field operations. Support hiring has recently been somewhat slowed by a rollout of some additional required documentation that needs to be submitted when requesting name clearance for hires. This went into effect on June 1st. So over the past 6 weeks, both Ryan Day of admin and I have had general meetings with hiring managers as well as one-on-one training to ensure that all the new documentation is in order for each hire. This is an admittedly new process, and many have gotten used to it, but we expect that this slowing of hiring is basically a temporary blip as people become familiar with the new requirements for submitting hiring packages. As I came into work today, I was going to report that we had 3 COVID cases within the last month, but we had 2 additional reported just this morning, for a total of 5 since the last board meeting. And as you may recall, we only had 1 between the previous board meetings. Quickly, yesterday we received our expenditure reports through May 31st of the now completed 22-23 fiscal year. And I'm happy to report that we are operating well within budget. We don't yet have our official budget authority for state fiscal year 2023-24. That will be issued to us, we hope, next week by EDD's Fiscal Programs Division. And as we wait for that budget authority, we are in the process of finalizing our internal approvals for our categorical budget allocations, and we expect to be able to present the 2023-24 budget to the board during the August 16th meeting.
Okay.
So that was my brief report, but I'll make up for it next month with the budget report.
Previews of coming attractions. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll turn to our board members. Vice Chair Kent Money.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Silva, for your report, and to you and Ryan for the extra time it takes for you when there's new changes in protocol and procedures, and to have that training go across the agency. Thank you. That's the nature of your work, I understand, but it seems like probably just when you're getting something down, another thing changes. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for the update. That's all.
Okay. Member Ng.
No question for me. Thank you for the report, and I may have some questions later on with the budget impacts, but I think for now, I believe that you have given the same report. You would give the same report. There's been no changes, no foreseeable cuts to our department. Thank you.
Member Wachowski.
No questions. Thank you.
Yes, and Rob, I look forward to the coming budget and your report. Thank you.
I'll move it along as quickly as I can next month.
Well, having had the reports, I'm going to turn to our board counsel, Mark Wissam, and I'd ask you, do we have any closed session items for today's agenda?
Thank you, Chair Allen. We do not.
So, hearing that we have no closed session items, I will declare this meeting closed.
Thank you.